Hey everyone, Richard here, and today, well, a few days ago, launched the pre-release beta for Darktide, a co-op FPS set in the Warhammer 40,000 universe. Being that I've been involved in the Warhammer hobby since I was around 12, and this game is right up my alley, I figured it would be worth taking a look at. Just as some context for this review, I have played Vermintide 2, the predecessor to this game. However, I've only played around 60 hours, so just something to keep in mind if you are a veteran of the series. Just to add some structure to this overview, I will be breaking the game down into 3 separate parts. This will include atmosphere and environment, stability and performance, and finally, is the game actually fun? First, I'll give a brief overview of the broad setting this game takes place in, the Warhammer 40,000 universe. In summary, it takes place in the year 40,000, hence the name, where humanity has spread itself across the stars in a massive empire. Despite many science fiction stories promising peace and prosperity amongst the stars, the Warhammer universe is a dark and unforgiving reality. The Imperium of Man is an oppressive, theocratic, and fascist regime fixated around the worship of their leader, known as the God Emperor of Mankind. Although the Imperium wields considerable military might, it is beset by alien races of varying intelligence, ranging from hive-controlled Tyranids to the deceptive Eldari. Its most grave threat comes both within and without. Traitors and heretics seek to undermine the power of the Imperium. This is where you come in. You play as a convicted criminal. Likely sentenced to death, you are given a chance at redemption. Help defeat the threat of corruption in the city of Tertium, and maybe you won't be murdered, or worse, turned into a servo skull. So, how well does the game portray the themes and imagery of the Warhammer universe? In my opinion, pretty well actually. Both the in-game player hub and the levels capture the oppressive Gothic architecture, as well as the weird fixation the Imperium has with skulls. Many of the buildings and infrastructure capture the immense scale that a Hive or Forge world would have as well. It also does a good job of highlighting how terrible it would be to be an average Imperial citizen, showing the cramped and dilapidated living conditions they are forced to endure. Character and enemy design are also perfectly accurate if you go by the tabletop and official art standards. In fact, many of the models look like they were obtained directly from tabletop miniatures. Finally, voice acting and dialogue are performed and written great. Many Warhammer titles or media get a little too cringy with their dialogue, embracing the religiosity of the setting a bit too much. This game finds a nice balance between the bleak, gritty military aspect and the religious nutjobbery of the Imperium. This is especially true if you have a mixed party, with the Zealot and Veteran in particular contrasting the two major themes of the Imperium. The only character I dislike is Hadron. She can be a bit grating, and she seems to have too few lines of dialogue, meaning you'll hear the same insult 3 times in a row when your servo skull doohickey crashes. Now that we have theme covered, let's look at something a little less fun, the stability and performance. Now obviously this is a pre-release beta, so I won't be saying where I would expect stability to be. I'll leave that up to you. I will say that it does have some pretty nasty issues at times. Nothing too oppressive to where you absolutely can't play the game, but enough to make it challenging. Random crashes and disconnects are very common as of writing this, although it's been getting better. Performance can also be downright abysmal in places, and there have been occasional server issues as well, although I think both of these issues are something that will almost certainly be ironed out. On screen are my hardware specs for my desktop running at 1080p. I'd say I'd get around 100 FPS average with some trimmed down settings and DLSS enabled. Granted, I would say it's more of a utilization and optimization issue considering my CPU and GPU utilization sit at around 30% during a firefight. Just keep in mind that if you're rocking a 10 series or older NVIDIA GPU or the AMD equivalent, you may have some performance issues until the game gets a bit of a workover. Bottom line, with a few performance tweaks, the game is easily playable on hardware from the last half decade or so in my experience. Now finally, the most important part of the overview, is this game actually fun? Short answer is yes. Both combat and metagame mechanics are rewarding and challenging. As someone who never really had a solid understanding of how to play Vermintide 2 as far as the combat goes, this game seems much easier to pick up, minus the iffy tooltips, again something that's likely getting fixed on release. For those that are familiar with the setting, weapons feel as you'd expect. Lasguns lack damage but have copious amounts of ammo and are very accurate. Chainswords can rend even armored enemies asunder, and the game also features the bolt gun, arguably the most iconic weapon of the Warhammer 40,000 universe. It feels cumbersome but also extremely powerful, as you would expect. Combat in general is challenging, but it never seems unfair. Minus the occasional special enemy spam, I never felt like getting down wasn't my fault. I'm sure Vermintide veterans have more to weigh in on this, but to me, this game is a ton of fun. Overall, I definitely recommend checking out the game when it releases. With a modest price tag of $40 US, it is an easy buy at full price for me. I guess as a small segue, I do plan on covering this game in the future, and likely in a similar way I have covered previous games, reviewing classes, weapons, and special enemies. Let me know your overall thoughts of the game in the comments below if you've played, or feel free to ask any questions if you're on the fence about picking it up. Join me next time when I will probably be doing a class or a weapon review, but until then, happy hunting, rejects.